Through Weight Loss by Hers, you can give yourself something to be excited about in 2025. You can spend the new year in control of your weight by losing up to an average of 9 pounds in your first month. This is based on data that real Hers customers have reported based on their personalized compounded GLP-1 treatment plans. Hers is transforming women's healthcare by providing access to affordable weight loss treatment plans, delivered straight to your door if prescribed. Hers offers a holistic weight loss program with personalized solutions, including compounded GLP-1 weekly injections, featuring the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy or oral medication kits. So if you've been struggling with your weight loss journey, it's time for you to find the best option that works for you through Hers. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/KKC. That's FORHERS.com/KKC for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/KKC. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Ever wondered if there's a better way to gauge your compatibility with other people on dating apps? Well, there is on eHarmony. Thanks to their compatibility quiz, you can see what makes you compatible with other members. On eHarmony, you're one step closer to finding someone you can be yourself with without having to pretend to be someone you're not. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and welcome back for this Saturday series episode. It began with a direct message to me. Hi, Kate. I don't know why I'm reaching out to you. I've never told anyone but family and friends, yet somehow I'm writing to you. And I responded, tell me more. And she did. Maura Bragg has an unbelievable story. In 1973, she and her twin brother were adopted. In 1973, there were 148,000 total adoptions in the United States, with 59,200 of those adoptions being non-relative adoptions. So if you were born in the 1970s and adopted, accessing your adoption records would depend on the state that you were adopted in, as laws regarding adoption record access vary widely. Many states in the 1970s had sealed records, meaning you might not be able to take additional steps to access information about your birth parents, which could include contacting the adoption agency involved or the court where the adoption took place, or utilizing a state-run adoption registry if one exists. Adoptees have been using DNA testing since they were first available, hopeful for a glimpse into their genetic legacy. In recent years, the rate at which adoptees are identifying their birth parents has increased. Many are seeking genetic health risks, wellness traits, and carrier status for genetic diseases. Although they were not created to find their biological parents, one feature can help you find and connect with genetic relatives. In the case of 23andMe, DNA Relatives is a feature that you can opt into, and it compares your DNA to other 23andMe users that are participating in DNA Relatives. It predicts a relationship based on the amount of DNA that you share. These shared segments indicate that the two people are related through a common ancestor. For example, my first cousin and I have 12% shared DNA. This is a story about what happened to Maura when she began to unravel her birth story, about the identity of her mother, her life story, and those of her mother's sisters. Now, over the years, I have spoken to many adoptees about their unique experiences. Most families are touched by the gift of adoption. Like I said, I have a cousin that was placed for adoption that I didn't meet until I was in my 20s. And you may remember my interview with the author Ann Fessler in episode 1109. She wrote the book, The Girls That Went Away. I highly recommend listening to that interview after today's episode because it puts into perspective how the birth of a child can forever change the lives of the birth mother, the child, and the adoptive parents. There are two different kinds of strength. There's the strength to make a parenting plan, and there's the strength to give that plan to another. Unknown. Here is my interview with Maura Bragg. Maura, the other Maura of my life, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell everybody how we met, because I think a lot of people think when they send me a DM, this is going into like outer space, but not so.
No, I sent you a DM. I think you responded within a minute on Instagram. Yeah, it probably was a minute. I don't even think more than that. So,
and you opened with, the only people that know this story are my family and my very close friends. And I don't know why I'm telling you this. And I said, tell me more.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I would write a few sentences and you'd say, tell me more. And I'd write a few more. And yep.
Yeah. The more we got into it, the more I thought, I think this is a story other people would love to hear. So start with your family of origin for me.
In Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. And my parents are actually divorced, but that happened when I was 6. But they are absolutely wonderful. They raised me, and I have a twin brother. They raised us both just outside Boston. My dad is an attorney, and my mom was in business sales. And my dad was remarried to my stepmother, a dentist. We had a great childhood. We had a great life. We were brought up Jewish and had a bar mitzvah, which is what it is when you have twins. And, we really had a wonderful life.
What was the theme of the party?
We didn't have a theme. They didn't really do themes back then. No, we had colors, which were red and gold and silver, but no theme. It's always fun having a twin because it means like you instantly have a whole group of guys there.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
when you're a 13-year-old girl and you're having sleepovers, my brother and the boys would be up in his room and we'd be downstairs and we'd have like walkie-talkies. It was so cute.
And then having a twin brother, does that work out in terms of dating, or is it annoying because then your brother's protective of you and he doesn't like anybody?
No, I think it was great. I mean, in some ways he was really protective, and in other ways, I think he taught me so much. And I feel like I got to know a lot more probably about boys at a younger age, because he would pull me aside or sit me down and say, if a guy tells you X, Y, and Z,
He's
that's
lying.
not true. Or, don't believe that. Or, I learned about blue balls and how that wasn't my problem and, things like that. So it was kind of cool, really being able to learn from a twin brother like that. The toughest thing was that a lot of girls thought he was cute.
Yeah.
And so when we were younger, there'd be especially older girls like talking to me, and I quickly realized why.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be my friend. They liked him.
But you're obviously you have a bond because you're twins, but an even deeper bond because you were adopted.
I think so. I really do. Our parents were it was never one of those like sit downs to explain to us you're adopted. They just raised us with the word. Like they actually sang songs, like made up songs about it. Just the word
nice.
Adopted was part of our vernacular and in our vocab. So it wasn't like a thing. It just was like, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't really until about 6th or 7th grade when we started doing genetics classes in science. And we were supposed to go home and find out, if your parents can roll their tongue, because that's something that's genetic. And we were learning about that, recessive and dominant genes and things like that, that we were both like, I guess we can't do that. And it was really nice about we had each other.
Yeah.
So we didn't feel alone because, again, we had each other.
How important was the ability to talk so openly about the fact that you were adopted? In retrospect, when you look back now, did it make a difference? I ask that because there are some people that I talked to that were in families of origin where the part of their story, the adoption part, is more of a secret.
Yeah, I cannot imagine. I mean, I just cannot imagine what that would be like, not knowing and having that secret. We were able to talk about it so freely and openly with each other, but also with my parents and my grandparents and even my great-grandparents. They were involved. They were all involved in the adoption process. Everybody was in the family. So it was never we were the first grandchildren. It just wasn't a secret. It was a celebration.
Yeah.
And, it was just so, it was like a good thing. It was almost like we were made to feel like we were special, like we were picked, we were special.
At what point did you start to feel like I want to know more about my own parents?
When I was trying to become pregnant. So that was mid-30s.
And not before that.
Not before that. Nope.
Okay.
Had no interest, did not care. My brother had actually expressed a little bit of interest, and he had mentioned it to me a few times. And I was like, you do you, boo, but I am not interested. I just didn't care. It wasn't like a negative thing. I just didn't really care.
Yeah.
It wasn't important to me. So it wasn't until I started trying to become pregnant and wasn't getting pregnant with my husband at the time that I started thinking about those kinds of things.
Okay. So you'd signed up to do 23andMe?
Yep. A few years ago, I signed up to do 23andMe for the purpose of maybe trying to figure this all out.
Yeah.
A lot of it also had to do with the fact that once I finally did become pregnant through IVF, my daughter has a rare gene disorder. The SCN2A gene in her brain is mutated, and it causes, a lot of disabilities like autism and intellectual disability, epilepsy, and it's very rare. So both her father and I were tested for the gene. We don't carry it. So it's not something that's actually passed down. But still, to be able to possibly learn about health conditions just all of a sudden became very important for me. Like the BRCA gene, all of the things that you have high blood pressure in your family. So, maybe I should, be testing my blood pressure more often or things like that. I didn't have any of that. And when I had her, having a sick kid, it really puts all of that to the forefront. So I did the 23andMe, and the results came back. And they came back and it said that pretty much 50-50 split. It has like a pie chart and a pretty much 50-50 split, that half of it was Irish with some English in there and the other half Middle Eastern.
When your parents told you about your birth mother, were there any characteristics they told you, any information at all?
They had said that back then, everything was a closed adoption. This was early 70s, and there was no such thing as an open adoption really back then. So my parents did not have access or the right to any information of the birth mother. So what they did know, they always, they told us that the birth mother was, young, in their early 20s, maybe a college student.
Wow.
And that we were born in a very small town in West Virginia. And the hospital that we were born in was so small that it didn't even have a maternity ward. So when we were born, we had like our elbows and our knees were all like red and burned from the sheets.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't have those special, yeah. So but they didn't really know much. They just knew that she was probably a college student, younger, and that was really it.
When you got the information from the website and it said that you were half Middle Eastern, half Irish, were you completely shocked?
Completely shocked. The Irish thing didn't shock me as much because my brother, I think he looks Irish.
Yeah.
But the Middle Eastern was like, just blew me away. And being brought up Jewish, I was like, oh, cool, because that's what I thought. Middle Eastern would probably mean, I'm from Israel.
Right.
That's so cool. That's so great because that's exactly how I was brought up. So, but yeah, it was shocking. I had no idea.
At that point, did you share with your adoptive family this information? Were they shocked as well?
I did share it with them. I made sure to talk to them before I even did the 23andMe. I wanted to make sure they were going to be okay with it. Of course, they were super supportive. They were super loving. And it was interesting though, because when I told them, I can't remember if it was both my mom and my dad, they weren't that surprised.
Wow.
So I don't know if that was something that they knew and maybe pushed back, or I don't know, I'm not sure, but they didn't seem very surprised. And I think one of them even said, maybe it was my mom, said something like, oh yeah, didn't we tell you that? I was like, what? No. So I don't know. It was a little bit strange. And again, I wonder how much of it was maybe a blur for them, or maybe just because it wasn't important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Did you call your brother and give him this information? And was he shocked?
Yeah, he was with it with me on the phone the whole time and through everything. And yeah, he was super surprised as well. Yeah, it was just really shocking. Again, Middle Eastern, though, we were both thinking, okay, again, being brought up Jewish, we're probably from Israel,
Mm-hmm.
Those are our peeps. That's what we thought.
So at what point do you start to discover relatives connected to you, to your birth family?
Within like an hour.
An hour?
Yes. So the one piece of information that my father had was he said that he had the last name of the biological mother.
Okay.
He said that he snuck in, or maybe they didn't realize that on our bracelets, the baby bracelets, usually it says, baby X or mother X, but the last name of the mother was on the anklet or bracelet or whatever. So he snuck a peek and he wrote it down, and he said he put it in the safe in his house if I ever wanted it. He always told my brother and I, if we ever wanted it, then we could have the name. And of course, I never wanted it. Well, when I did the 23andMe, I said, I want the
ready.
name. Yeah, I'm ready. Oh, so that was the other thing. It was very Irish. The biological mother's last name was really Irish. It was one of those MCs. So that's why the Irish thing definitely wasn't surprising. But so he gave the name, and that's all he had. That was all he had. And it's a very common Irish last name. So it wasn't really that helpful, except when the 23andMe came in, it said, these are your potential, I don't think they guarantee anything, relatives. And at the top of the list, I had it sorted by, closest relative. And the first one was someone, and it said half brother.
Wow.
Or / first cousin.
Yeah.
But it was like more heavily towards brother.
Because
brother.
you shared enough DNA that it would qualify as a relative that would have been a cousin or a half sibling. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah, a half sibling. All I remember was calling my brother and being like, were we triplets?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was like nuts.
Yeah.
And I called my parents, and I'm like, guys. And again, this is all like within an hour of getting the results. I'm, calling and have the name of the biological mother, and I'm calling my parents, and they're like, no, we swear. And my dad tells the story about how he got the call that we were born because they only thought that she was having one baby.
Oh.
Back then, they didn't do amnio. They didn't do all the testing. So they only thought she was having one baby. She only thought she was having one baby.
Well, so she's from an area that probably was low income. Prenatal care was probably not even thought about.
No. And imagine now, they have like the adopted parents pay for prenatal care. Yeah, they didn't do anything like that. So when my dad gets the call from the lawyer to say that she had the baby, he was all excited. And he said that he put down the phone and he ran up and down the hall of his office as an attorney. And he comes back to the phone and he's like, because he said you have a baby boy. And then the lawyer said she also had a baby girl. And my dad was like, what? And his lawyer said, look, you only contracted for one. Do you want them both? And I mean, when you hear that, all I could think of was, you mean I could have lived my life without my twin brother? Like, what? But no, my dad said, are you kidding me? We can't have kids. We'll take everything and anything that she wants. We'll take them both.
Well, as an outsider, I'm hearing that story and it's like that sliding glass door. When I hear that, I think of the utter joy of your parents who struggled to have children and now they get to have two. And I think, then I think of your birth mother, who thought she was only having one. And now she is placing two for adoption, and how painful that must have been for her.
It's like
three people with such different life experiences in one moment in time.
In literally one moment of time.
Yeah.
And then to make things even crazier, because this would never happen now, and I ask my parents all the time how this even happened, so they fly down to pick us up to West Virginia from Boston. And meanwhile, my grandparents are back trying to get a second crib, a second car seat, because were getting everything set up for one baby, but now they have two. And they only had one nursery decorated, the whole thing. But everyone's so excited. And my parents fly down, they pick us up and fly us back to Boston at 3 days old. We are on a plane back home to Boston, 3 days old. And I'm like, and my dad, who's a lawyer, I'm like, Dad, did you kidnap us? What about the paperwork? Didn't you have to go to the courthouse there? What? He's like, yeah, I don't know. What happened was, and what happens when you're adopted is you go get a new birth certificate.
Oh.
So my parents had to go to the courthouse in Boston with the old birth certificates that basically just say baby X, and there are no names on it. And then they actually issue you a brand new birth certificate. So they got birth certificates for my brother and I, and it never happened. But I was like, how did you get us out of the state and on a plane?
Yeah.
Back then it was different. It was very, very different, especially when there are private adoptions like this.
So then we fast forward to 23andMe, and you start to see the information on other relatives, and you now know your ancestral history.
Yeah.
And then you start to find out information about those relatives. And how does that go?
Yeah. So when I found, when the half brother / potential first cousin came up, I reached out, because you can reach out on 23andMe. I reached out instantly, sent a private message to him saying, hey, I just, got my 23andMe. I'm, looking for some biological family information. Basically, do you know anything? Do you want to talk? Whatever. He, just like you, messaged me right back.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, let's talk. So we chatted, and I'll never forget, because I was at my boyfriend's daughter's dance recital. And I didn't want to be rude, but I was dying inside, because here's this guy who is possibly my brother. And he said, I have information. I've been looking. And I was like, oh my God, freaking out, right? So he was adopted, and he was looking for his biological parents. He grew up in Texas, I think Houston it was. And he had lovely, adopted parents, had a great life, the same kind of story. And he had a son who was sick with a very rare cancer.
Oh.
And he was a couple years old. And that's when he wanted to find out health information, same as just like me. So we obviously had a lot in common. And he said that he hired, I think they're called Angel. I don't remember what they're called. It's Angel something, but they're people who basically help people do this, try to find their birth family. And so he had hired. So he sent me a copy of this spreadsheet, flow chart. And down below this one spot, there were 3 sisters and no name. The rest of the chart had all these other names and everything. And I said, and on the chart did not have my biological mother's last name, but there was this one space with 3 sisters and no information, just that they were 3 sisters. And I said, I bet I know what that name is. So we filled it in with the last name. I did some quick research, and sure enough, came up with 3 sisters who were initially from Ohio that had the last name that totally fit, plugged right in there, plugged right in.
Hello, ladies and gerbs, boys and girls. The Grinch is back again to ruin your Christmas season with 'Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast. After last year, he's learned a thing or two about hosting, and he's ready to rant against Christmas cheer and roast his celebrity guests like chestnuts on an open fire. You can listen with the whole family as guest stars like John Hamm, Brittany Broski, and Danny DeVito try to persuade the mean old Grinch that there's a lot to love about the insufferable holiday season. But that's not all. Somebody stole all the children of Whoville's letters to Santa, and everybody thinks the Grinch is responsible. It's a real Whoville whodunit. Can Cindy Lou and Max help clear the Grinch's name? Grab your hot cocoa and cozy slippers to find out. Follow Tis the Grinch Holiday Podcast on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Unlock weekly Christmas mystery bonus content and listen to every episode ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.
They say Hollywood is where dreams are made, a seductive city where many flock to get rich, be adored, and capture America's heart. But when the spotlight turns off, fame, fortune, and lives can disappear in an instant. When TV producer Roy Radin was found dead in a canyon near LA in 1983, there were many questions surrounding his death. The last person seen with him was Lainey Jacobs, a seductive cocaine dealer who desperately wanted to be part of the Hollywood elite. Together, they were trying to break into the movie industry. But things took a dark turn when $1 million worth of cocaine and cash went missing. From Wondery comes a new season of the hit show Hollywood and Crime, The Cotton Club Murder. Follow Hollywood and Crime, The Cotton Club Murder on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of The Cotton Club Murder early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus.
So one of those sisters was his mother.
One was his mother, biological mother, and one was my biological mother.
And do you both reach out to the family at the same time or one before the other?
Me, I said, we didn't know whose biological, and maybe we both had the same biological mother. We didn't know. We had no idea. Because again, he could have been a half brother. We didn't know. So I did a lot of digging to find out who I thought was not the biological mother of either of us. And I called her. I told him, I said, listen, let me do this. This is what I do, right? I'm a lawyer. This is what I do. Let me do this. So I called her and I said, the one that I think is not the biological mother. And I said, I'm just doing some research on family information because we have some adopted people in our family, whatever. And I was asking her about kids, if she had kids, to just get her comfortable. She's telling me about her kids. Everything's great. I asked her about siblings. She tells me she has 2 sisters. So of course, at this point, I'm like, I know I'm right on this. I know I'm on the money. And I asked her if she had ever put any kids up for adoption, knowing the answer would be no. She said no. And I said, did anyone in your family? And she said, yes, actually. My our oldest sister, she had twins that she put up for adoption when she was 18, 19 years old. And I've always wondered how those twins are. I've always wondered.
Is your stomach dropping as this is happening?
My sweet boyfriend is on speakerphone. We're in his office. He's sitting in a recliner chair. I'm behind the desk. The phone's on speaker. He instantly sobs, sobbing. I am trying to hold it together, but my stomach, flips, knots. I'm really trying to almost disassociate and just be professional instead of this is about me. And as soon as she said, we've always wondered what happened with those twins, with the babies, he's sobbing. And I just looked right into the phone and I said, I can tell you how those twin babies are. And not a word. I'm sure her jaw was probably on the floor. What are you talking about? And I said, I'm one of them. I'm the twin baby. I'm one of them. And she starts sobbing. We're just all bawling at this point. Yeah.
Now, she's probably wondered about you all of these years. And then you get the pleasure of telling her that you and your brother are successful and happy and you came from these great families. That must have been so touching for her to hear that.
She was so happy. She really was. She was so happy to hear that. And it was really meaningful and impactful for me to be able to tell her that as my biological aunt, that, we we were good. We were really good.
Did she tell you any information about your mother?
She did. Yeah, she did. She told me that she was glad to hear that we were doing so well and we were both so, happy and had a great childhood. She said, because that never would have been the case if your biological mother had kept you. She said that unfortunately she was ill with mental health issues and drug and alcohol, mostly drug abuse as well. And that had started from probably late teens, early 20s, which was another thing that almost kind of blew me away. Was my brother and I were both born very healthy, which is a miracle to think that she may have been abusing drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. She doesn't know if it was when she was pregnant, but very well possible.
So at that point, you didn't have any communication with your birth mother. This was all through the sister.
All through the sister. And she told me that told me that when she was graduated high school, top of her class, number one, it was in Ohio. They were brought up in Ohio. And she graduated number one. She sent me a picture of her valedictorian, her senior high school picture. And she looked so pretty. But she said that she was really tortured. And she said that their father abused her, my biological mother, since she was a really little girl. He sexually abused her. And she said that when she was 18, just after she had graduated, like that summer, whether it was a few weeks or a month after graduating from high school, her father came home really drunk and brought his friends home with him, late at night, and they all raped her. Like a chain, just in line type of thing. And she said that was it. She left. She left the house and she never came back. And she didn't hear from her for a while, but she was out. And the biological aunt, the woman that I'm talking to, she said that she really felt like she probably stuck around as long as she did because she was afraid what would happen to her two younger sisters if she left. And of course, exactly what you'd think and what she thought happened when she left to the two younger sisters. He was an alcoholic father and passed away, luckily, before I had, heard any of this because I was really angry. Obviously, it was a really difficult thing to hear. I just never heard any, you see it in movies, but I grew up in a bubble. I'd never heard anything like that before. Nothing. I mean, the worst thing that I had heard about in my life were parents getting divorced. It was mind-blowing. Boyfriend's still sitting there sobbing. I mean, the whole thing is like it can't be real. It can't be real. So I said, okay, well, what about, did she have another baby that she put up for adoption? And, before we get to that, so first I said, okay, well, do you know who did she get pregnant by? What was the story? And she said, well, the story was that she was with some guy who was in college in West Virginia, and she got pregnant by him. And he was actually at the school to get an engineering degree from Iran, which made perfect sense because the 23andMe came back 50% Middle Eastern. At which point now, by the way, it's actually specified to Iranian. It's come a long way. They've narrowed it down on 23andMe and specified that it is Iranian. And so I was like, what? Like, okay, that makes sense to me, but how is some guy from Iran in West Virginia? Like, none of it really, I just couldn't really get it all together. But she said that his parents had sent him there to school for engineering. And I said, can you find out his name for me? And she said, yeah, absolutely. I'll find out his name. And she said, are you interested in talking to your biological mother at all? And I said, I don't know. I didn't. I mean, initially I thought I was, maybe, or if anything, just like exchanging information, because I wanted to just let her know that we were good. I didn't want her to ever think or worry or anything like that. But I really got the impression from her sister that she wasn't worried.
How did that make you feel?
Badly. I felt sad, especially since I had spent so much time worried about her, worried about how she felt. And then getting pregnant myself and having a baby, I could never imagine giving a baby up for adoption. Like how selfless that is. I couldn't do it. I could never do it.
Yeah.
But actually hearing it was the opposite. What her sister was saying was that it wasn't selfless, that it was selfish.
Wow.
So it was difficult. It was very difficult to hear because I had spent 30 some odd years thinking the exact opposite.
Why do you think that it was selfish?
Well, that's what she said, because she was just interested in self-preservation. I think it was just self-preservation. I mean, obviously, drugs and alcohol were to self-medicate. This is not a family that was going to therapy and, the things that our parents had us in therapy at 6 when we got separated. I mean, that's, how I grew up. This was not that. And so I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all.
Yeah. I'm just imagining this young woman. This must have been extraordinarily painful for your birth mother. All of these life experiences, and especially placing the both of you for adoption. What a strong woman to be in that position and to place you, and knowing that she couldn't give you the life that you deserved.
No, she couldn't even take care of herself.
Yeah.
She literally could not even take care of herself. So I asked her, so she had said to me when I was on the phone with her, my biological aunt, when she asked me about getting in touch with her, I said, I don't know. And she said, I wouldn't. She said that, they had tried to be close, all the sisters, but she was really a problem. And the only time they ever heard from her was when she needed something. And usually it was money, because she could never hold down a job. She just kind of floated around, and, she was obviously very sick. And she said, I would not. She will be at your doorstep and she will make your life miserable. That's what she told me.
Wow.
Which again just made me feel so sad.
Yeah.
Sad for her.
So when you talked to her about this other baby, how did that go?
So yeah, I said, well, do you know if she had another baby that you put up for adoption? And she was like, no, definitely not. And I said, well, and you said you didn't put a baby up for adoption, right? And she said, no. And I said, well, there's another sister. And I said, she must have been the one to put a baby up for adoption. She said, no, absolutely not. I mean, adamant. She said, we are very close. I know her like the back of my hand. No. And I gave her about the year because I knew how old my possible half-brother first cousin was. And she said, absolutely not. And she stuck by that. So I get off the phone with her after how many hours? First call my brother and tell him everything. And then call my parents and tell them everything. And then I called my potential first cousin, half-brother, to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I don't understand. Allegedly, none of them had you. Maybe 23andMe is wrong. It must be wrong. It was maybe a week later, he messaged me. He said, I just got a DM on Facebook from one of the sisters. And she all it said was, I heard you've been asking about me.
Oh.
And she said, yes, I'm your biological mother. And it was the sister that nobody knew. Nobody ever knew she was even pregnant. Ever. No one knew she was pregnant. No, she gave birth like in an alley type of a thing, literally outside by herself. She gave birth. Then she brought him to the fire station, left him on the stairs, the front door, the stairs, whatever it is of the fire station, and never said one word of it to anybody ever until that moment when she was sending him the message saying, I heard you were asking about me.
These sisters, what life experiences.
What life experiences. What horrible, horrible, horrible experiences. She was actually professionally, she is successful. She works, and I think it's for a reason, as a 911 operator.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I said, yeah, it makes total sense, right? That type of a position, you're helping people, you're saving people, right? I mean, what more good can you do in the world than be a 911? I mean, that to me is just, and it just made sense. She was the youngest child in that family. So she was the last one left in that house to be stuck with that father and a mother who knew everything that was going on and about them being abused and did nothing about it.
Well, she may have been abused herself.
She very well may. Yeah. Obviously there was, she very well may have. She has since passed as well, but the daughters were, even when she died, they were very upset with her. I'm sure they were still feeling like they were 9 years old, or I don't know. I can't. Again, it's just so hard to imagine.
Yeah.
But she did explain to him. They actually got together and they met. He did meet with her. I met him as well. I went down. He was living on the East Coast, not too far, but he wasn't in Texas anymore. So I actually met him and his family. And it was really nice. It was just really nice.
Did you look alike?
He looked like my brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'll send you a picture. He, dark hair, bald, which he is now too. So they both, shave their head type of thing once, the hair starts going. And those same bright blue eye, they looked goatee. They looked a lot alike. It was freaky.
And what happened to him?
Not too long after I saw him, his son, the one who was sick with the rare disease, he passed away. And I had tried to help. They were doing some, work up in New York. I tried to help maybe get him into Boston Children's, and they didn't even get that far. He had passed away before anything could really come to pass for help. But after he passed away, the baby passed away, I was still in contact with the biological aunt of mine. And one day I get a message from her out of the blue. It was probably like 9-10 months after the baby had died. And she said, have you seen the news? And my biological aunt lives in Michigan. So I'm like, the news where? Like, what do you mean by the news? And she said, yeah, I'll send it to you. Okay. She sent me a news article. And the news article said that a man called the police station from his house, and he told whoever answered at the police station that that there were people killed in his house. His family was dead. That's what he said. And he hangs up the phone. When the police got there, they found his wife shot dead in her room. The 3 other children, little children, all shot dead as well in their rooms. And he, the caller, self-inflicted gunshot wound in the garage. He was dead as well. So he had killed his entire family and then himself. And again, something that how do you wrap your head around something like that? I couldn't believe it. To make it even crazier, his biological mother was the one who told my biological aunt. I don't know if it's a 911 operator thing or what it was, but she was scrolling through something and she heard the call.
Oh, no.
And so she instantly called. She knew. She knew. She said, that's my biological son. that is my biological son. So she called her sister, and that's when they sent the message to me. And by then it was breaking news. And that's why, she had sent like an article, like a breaking news article. Didn't have names even at that point. It just had like a picture of the house, really nice house. They just seemed like such a loving, caring family. And he had a great job. They were high school sweethearts. His biological mother, amazingly enough, got in contact with his adopted parents, and his adopted mom spent a long time talking with her, and which is just amazing because I can't even imagine his adopted mom. I don't know. I mean, it's just so hard to imagine how any of these people could possibly be feeling. But his adopted mom explained to the biological mother that he had actually been suicidal right after the son had died, and he was in a treatment. He went to get some help, and because I instantly was like, "What do you mean?" Okay, so he was suicidal. Why did this happen? Why wasn't he in treatment? Why wasn't he getting help? He was in a facility getting treatment. I mean, so everybody thought that after he got out that he was doing better. And then that happened. It was so strange too, because I learned from his biological mother that he wasn't going to be buried with his family.
Mm.
The wife's parents wouldn't let him be buried with her and the kids. And I remember calling my mom, and I was like crying. And she's like, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Mom, that is so awful. That because he loved them and now he can't even be buried." And my mother said to me, "Maura, let's think about this. Right. I'm not saying it's not awful, but would you ever?" He killed his family. Yeah. She said, "If that happened to you, I wouldn't. You'd be the same. If anyone hurt your child, but again, just so hard to wrap your head around how any of these people could be feeling. Her parents now.
Yeah.
Their grandchildren are dead. His parents, it was mind-blowing. And there I had just found the second blood relative of my life.
Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.
Or now at this point, are you like, I need to close the box? Like, this is too much.
Second person I had ever met in my life that shared blood with me. And this, after hearing about the biological mothers and what they went through, and now with him, yeah, I was like, I don't know. I cannot do this. I can't. I don't know how much I want to know. And now I wish I didn't know anything. Right. But I need to find out the other side of it, which was the Iranian side still.
So how did you pursue that?
So I asked my biological aunt to ask my biological mother for the name of my biological father. And so she got it. She said, "I'm not going to tell her that it's for you or that you have contacted me or anything." She was so protective of me. She was so afraid of me talking to her. So afraid. So she got the name, and first name Mohammed. And I found him in the yearbook.
Wow.
In West Virginia. The graduation was 1974. So I was born in 73, and it had a senior picture, engineering. Yeah, I found him instantly. Did not look anything like me and did not look anything like my brother. It was crazy. I mean, it was crazy to see the picture.
Did you reach out to him?
I did. Yeah, I found him on LinkedIn. I did some research on him and found him on LinkedIn as a way. That was like, I couldn't on social media. I couldn't really find him, but I found him on LinkedIn. And he was from Iran, but he was now living in and is now living in Australia. And he's married with 2 kids and that are, younger than I am, but I think maybe 30s, 40s. And so I reached out to him on LinkedIn and I said, basically my name and my brother's name. And I just want you to know that I want you to be aware that we're great and we're happy and we had great childhoods. And I understand that you are our biological father. And told him, a bunch about my brother and I. And he wrote back and he said, well, it's very nice to hear that you have a nice life or something along those lines. He said, but I'm not your biological father. He said, I can't be. And he said, I've only ever been with one woman in my life. And that's my wife. And I said, okay, but no, What do you mean? So I told him, I told him all about biological mother's name, try to refresh his memory a little bit, ask him some more leading questions here. And he said, at that time when I was in college, I was actually married to my wife.
Oh, yeah.
Parents sent me over to get the engineering degree, but this was after I'd already been married. So my wife was back in Iran and I was in school. So I was not with anyone else. I was married. And he basically closed the door on it and told me that, sorry, kid, have a nice life.
Meanwhile, he probably sent that email and then in a full flop sweat, right?
Full.
Yeah.
Not too long after, I get a message on 23andMe. And it's from someone who says, with the percentage, and it says half sister. What?
Mm-hmm.
This someone, and it showed that she is from West Virginia, half sister. And again, so now I'm thinking, my focus is always on the sisters, right? On these 3 sisters. And I was like, what in the world? So she said, the message from her said, I just did a 23andMe and you came up as a possible sibling, like half sibling of mine. And she said, and I don't understand because it shows on my chart that I'm like half Middle Eastern. By then it said Iranian, I think. Actually, it said Iranian. She said, what? This is all wrong. I don't know what this is. Like, basically, like, can you contact me? So I contacted her, and she was born and raised in West Virginia, in the area of where I was born and in the area of where my biological father went to college in West Virginia. But she was raised by her biological mother. And she said she never knew her biological father. And she said she didn't know anything. Her mother refused to even speak nothing. She said the only thing she ever heard was from like a distant cousin or relative at one point had said to her that they thought that her biological father was like one of these guys basically in the neighborhood. And who was like her, I think Irish, English, and she said that was always bad. She didn't like knowing that because it was a yucky family. She said that they just weren't a good family. Like, sounded just kind of trashy, so she said she always felt like awful if that was true, but she couldn't get that confirmed. And again, her mom would never talk about it. And I said, I think that I know why. And I told her all about her biological father. And I gave her the name and told her about how I had reached out to him. I told her about, my biological mother and, all of that. And my brother, I said, he's not on 23andMe. So I told her that she has a half sibling as well. She was an only child.
Wow.
And she was floored. And it was hard for me. I was like, okay, Maura, you need to like slow down, take a step back. You have to realize you've been living in this craziness for a little while now, and you've had time to process, but she hadn't. So I tried to give her the pieces kind of in drips and drabs. But I got off the phone with her, because this was all on a phone call. I got off the phone with her and I said, basically, let it all sink in, then call me back. Any questions you have, any more info you want, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. She ended up calling me back not too long after we had initially talked. And she called and she said that she was really angry. She said she was really, really angry. And I said, oh, okay, like, go ahead, talk to me about this. And she said, have you seen like his kids on Facebook, like on social media? And I said, yes, I have. And she said, they just look like they have the best life. And I said, that's the way it looks. It looks, on social media. And she said, my life was horrible. I mean, I don't think she has a pot to piss in. She said, I had a horrible upbringing. And they live like this. And she said, I am angry. How can he get away with doing this to my mother, to doing this to your mother? And of course, at this point, I think that there are probably other kids running around West Virginia or Boston or who knows where.
Right.
It sounds like he had a grand old time in college to me. This is all I'm thinking. And it was interesting because I never really felt anger, and I never even thought to be angry.
But you had parents that were loving and supportive.
Yeah.
And a twin brother.
Exactly. And grandparents, right, everybody, a whole family full of loving people. So I just never even thought about that. But I understood. I mean, her feelings are her feelings, obviously, but I also understood where she was coming from. And that made me feel really, really sad for her. But it also made me angry, not like for myself, but angry, like, well, he's never going to be held accountable. He's never going to be held responsible for what he did. I did reach out on social media to the kids. I never heard back.
How old are the kids?
Oh, they're married with kids. I think they're like 40s. One actually lives in the States, in Texas.
Yeah, but for all you know, they know that their father is like this.
Yeah, I don't know. And I know that it was funny because my brother and my boyfriend were like, well, what is your goal in reaching out to them? What's your purpose? What's your goal? And I said, I want them to know, which I guess sounds twisted and not very nice, but I want them to know. I want them to know. But you're right. Maybe they already do.
Mm-hmm.
He's extremely successful in Australia, and the son works with him. But the daughter's in Houston. Maybe she knows. And then I know that when I initially messaged you, you had mentioned that maybe it wasn't consensual.
Yeah.
And that just fits for me. It really fits for me. I never thought about that. But when I told my biological half-sister about her biological father, I said, of course, your mom's not going to talk about it. I was intellectualizing it like, well, your biological mom lives in West Virginia. He's Iranian in the 70s. This was later 70s. She's younger than I am. But I don't really think that would have been socially acceptable. Probably bad enough that she was, pregnant out of wedlock. So it kind of made sense to me, again, intellectualizing it. But maybe that wasn't it at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't like she had a love affair or a boyfriend with someone who was Middle Eastern and it was taboo. Maybe he was just like my biological mother's father.
Quite possibly.
Repeating patterns.
I think that's the harder pill to swallow as we get older, is that not only is it like the narrative is not exactly what we thought it was, but the realization that our birth parents have had a series of life experiences that we could never understand.
Never.
And being at peace with it.
I don't know how to be at peace with it.
By the way, that's fine to say that. Like, I'm still making sense of it. That's honest, and it may never change out of that. I know I certainly can't make sense of things of my own life too, and that's okay.
It's okay, but it's okay. But I want to make something of it or make something from it.
Yeah. Well,
if that makes any sense.
Yes, but you do that now by telling the story. And I think you're going to be amazed at how many people relate to that.
I guess I felt like and still feel like, until sometimes listening to some of your podcasts, that I'm all alone in this, right? Like, this is crazy. People don't experience these types of feelings. People don't experience these types of things. This just doesn't happen. This is a story like nobody else has, which makes you feel really alone. Luckily for me, I have a twin brother, and I have, amazing family and supportive boyfriend and all of the great things. And I still feel a certain way and still find it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But to think that anybody else would, like my half sister, she's all alone. She never reached out to me again.
Well, she's probably angry that you had a good life too.
Yeah.
But we all make choices and we can have a good life. It's about choices.
It is. It really is about choices. And ever since I had my daughter, I realized that and I recognize that. I'll never forget my mom, when I was pregnant, she tried to not give me like a lot of advice. And it was strange when I was pregnant or trying to get pregnant, because my mother had never been pregnant, because we were adopted. And so I didn't have a lot of the older, like, female role models to talk to about being pregnant and pregnancy, because my mother and my stepmother never had natural children either. She just had us. But I remember her saying to me, as a working mother, you're going to have to choose. When you get home from work, you choose what you're going to do. There are always going to be dishes in the sink. There's always going to be laundry to do. But you're going to have a baby crawling around on the floor. And you have to choose, how am I going to spend the time that I don't really have? And I never forgot that. And I would get home from work and I would just get down on the floor and play with my daughter. That was my choice. And to this day, I don't know if it's because of all of this. I don't know if that's why I do always make that choice to put her first.
But we can make choices in how we want to carry ourselves. You make a choice to volunteer or to surround yourself by people who are loving and faithful, or whatever it may be. And your half sister has the choice to take pain and turn it into purpose, And
I guess that's exactly what I want to do, is turn it into purpose somehow. Wow. And I think initially it was the purpose would be to try to hold him responsible or him accountable. But I know I can't do that. So instead, I've always advocated and volunteered for women's groups and for pro-choice organizations ever since I was little. And to me, this is part of it. This is definitely part of it.
You also have a daughter with a rare genetic disorder, and you are her advocate and an advocate for other parents. Tell us a little bit about her rare disorder and the organization that you work with.
Yeah, so she has a rare gene disorder. Everybody has an SCN2A gene in their brain, and this SCN2A gene in her brain is mutated. And When she was first diagnosed, she was number 50 in the world, the 50th person with this gene mutation. And ever since then, I have been working diligently with other mothers. 2 mothers started an organization called Families SCN2A to try to find a cure for this rare gene disorder. It causes epilepsy. It causes autism. It causes intellectual disability. It causes sight issues, heart issues. It's really something that, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of children in the community from. I'm very lucky. My daughter is pretty high functioning compared to a lot of children with the gene disorder that can't walk or can't talk or can't even feed themselves. So I am an advocate. I'm on the board of the organization, and I'm an advocate for her, but also for all children and parents who can't speak for themselves.
But you see that you're healing yourself in this chapter of your life in the way that you're, digesting all of this information. You're healing yourself by being an advocate. And in some ways, you can heal your own birth mother, even though you don't have a relationship, because you're paying it forward.
No, I never thought about it like that.
It's pretty powerful.
I don't know. Well, maybe that's why. I don't know why I've always felt compelled, or why I do feel compelled. I guess I just, for my daughter, I mean, I just look at it like, well, you just do anything that you can, right? I mean, that's what we do as mothers. But like my mother said, no, you actually have a choice. And as difficult as it is to be on the board of the foundation, because I'm a single mom with a very busy career with a sick child, but I make the choice. Yeah, I make the choice, as difficult as it is, to be that advocate and to be that voice. And
you are from strong women. It's just they had life circumstances that they were up against, which were quite difficult. But you do come from strong women.
And I'm just lucky enough to never have to deal with the horrific things that they had to deal with. Never.
Yeah. Well, if people want to get information about the foundation, where can they get information?
You can go on our website. It's familiesscn2a.org. It's families, FAMILIESCN2A.org. And really, I would encourage anybody who actually has a child or knows of anyone with autism to go ahead and get themselves or get their child tested, get a DNA genetic test done to see if maybe they do have the SCN2A gene mutation, because we are working on finding a cure. So we really do believe that a lot of children with epilepsy and autism probably do have this mutation and just don't know because they don't go ahead and get tested. If they need help getting, the financial wherewithal to get the testing, anything like that, or where to go, we're here to help. So definitely go on the familiesscn2a.org website.
Thank you so much for sharing this story with me, Maura.
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it. I can't believe I reached out to you, but I guess I just felt so compelled after hearing so many of the stories that people on your podcast tell. And I said, well, I've got one.
Yeah. And I think you're going to be quite surprised by how many people are going to relate to this. So thank you.
I can't imagine. I thank you so much.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my most interesting and courageous friend, Maura Bragg, and remind you to click subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Please join the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. Tell me what you think about this episode, this story. And don't forget to reach out to me if you too have an unbelievable story. You can get my must-watch list of what to watch in unscripted television by going to katecasey.substack.com. Bonus episodes are available by going to Patreon, patreon.com/Kate Casey. And also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KateCaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky, all at Kate Casey. Check back Monday for an all-new What to Watch episode.